I opened the door to the apartment, expecting the usual quiet. But instead, the sound of movement hit me before I even stepped inside. I froze, heart racing. It wasn't normal. Emily was home, but why was she moving around like that? I peeked into the living room, and there she was, holding a suitcase, clothes spilling out of drawers. Emily? My voice was shaky. What's going on? She didn't even look up. She just kept packing. Her eyes were fixed on the pile of clothes in her hands, as if she couldn't care less about anything else. Emily? I repeated, louder this time, my voice breaking. She finally turned to me, and for a second, I thought I saw something in her eyes, a flicker of hesitation. But it was gone almost immediately. Her face was hard, like a stranger's. I didn't recognize her in that moment. It's over, she said, her voice flat. I'm leaving. I blinked. What? No, you're not. What do you mean, over? She sighed and dropped the clothes into the suitcase, still not looking at me. I'm sorry, but I've met someone else. Someone better. Someone who can give me everything you can't. I felt the world tilt. My legs almost buckled beneath me. What? No. Emily, please, don't do this. You can't be serious. Her eyes flickered to mine, but there was no softness in them. No love. Only coldness. It's been over for a while, you just didn't see it, she said, shaking her head, like she was explaining something simple. I've been trying to make it work, but I can't pretend anymore. Pretend? I felt anger starting to boil in my chest. You've been pretending? All this time? She didn't respond, just zipped up the suitcase and lifted it from the bed. My breath caught in my throat. This couldn't be happening. She couldn't be leaving me. Emily, please, I whispered, my voice breaking. We had plans. We were supposed to build a life together. She paused for a second. I thought maybe, just maybe, she would change her mind. But then she shook her head, as if dismissing me completely. I'm sorry, I really am, she said, her voice distant, but I've found someone who's everything you're not. Someone who can give me everything I need. Someone with money. Power. Influence. Money. Power. Influence. Those words hit me like a slap to the face. Was that what I was? Not enough? I felt my heart shatter, each beat harder than the last. No, don't do this, I pleaded, stepping toward her, desperate, my hands trembling. I can be better. I'll change. Just don't leave me. She looked at me then, her gaze cold and indifferent. I've made up my mind. I can't go back. And with that, she turned and walked out the door, leaving me standing there, my world crumbling around me. My heart felt like it was being ripped from my chest. She was really gone. I didn't know what to do. What to feel. Anger surged within me, anger at her for leaving, for betraying me, for throwing everything away like it meant nothing. But then, a sickening thought settled in my mind. Was I never enough for her? Was everything we had a lie? The anger started to fade, replaced by a gnawing emptiness. What did I do wrong? Was I not good enough for her? Had I failed her in some way? I sank down onto the couch, head in my hands. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I couldn't believe this. She was gone, and there was nothing I could do to bring her back. I'd lost everything in the blink of an eye, and I didn't know how to fix it. The days dragged on after Emily left. I went through the motions, but everything felt off. Like the world was running on fast forward, and I was stuck on pause. I couldn't escape it. Her face, her voice, the way she looked at me before she walked out the door, it haunted me every waking moment. I stayed home for the first few days, the apartment feeling like a prison. I tried to sleep, but when I closed my eyes, all I saw was her walking away, suitcase in hand, her back turned to me like I meant nothing. My stomach twisted every time I thought about it. I couldn't bring myself to go to work. I couldn't look anyone in the eye. How could I explain to anyone that the woman I loved had just left me for someone else? My phone buzzed with messages from friends, asking if I was okay. I ignored them all. What was the point of talking to anyone? They wouldn't understand. How could they? I was the guy who got dumped, the guy who wasn't enough for her. I didn't need their pity. One morning, I forced myself to get out of bed, but I felt like I was moving through quicksand. I didn't care about anything anymore, work, friends, anything. I grabbed a bottle of whiskey from the kitchen and poured myself a glass, even though it was barely noon. It didn't make the pain go away, but for a second, I didn't think about her. I didn't think about how empty everything felt without her. The nights were the worst. The silence in the apartment, the space she used to fill, her laughter, her voice, the sound of her moving around, making dinner or picking out what to wear. All of it was gone. I couldn't stand it. The alcohol made everything fuzzier. I'd sit on the couch, stare at the TV, but the images never made sense. They were just colors and shapes. Nothing mattered. My mind would drift, and I'd think about her again. I wondered what she was doing. Was she happy? Was she with him, the billionaire, the one who could give her everything I couldn't? Every time the thought crossed my mind, a wave of anger hit me. But then, just as quickly, self-doubt would creep in. What was wrong with me? Why wasn't I enough? I loved her, I did everything I could, but I wasn't good enough. She had left me for a man with money. Power. Influence. Was that it? Was that all I was? Just some temporary placeholder until someone more successful came along? Someone who could offer her the life I couldn't? I hated myself for even thinking like that, but I couldn't help it. The more I tried to push the thoughts away, the more they kept coming back. Days blended together into one long blur. I didn't remember the last time I smiled. I didn't remember the last time I felt happy. I avoided the mirror because I didn't like the person staring back at me. The person who couldn't hold on to the one thing he loved most. Then came the dreams. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, heart racing, as if I could still feel her beside me, the warmth of her body next to mine. But when I opened my eyes, she wasn't there. The bed felt so much colder now. I felt like a stranger in my own skin. I tried to force myself to think about something else, but my mind always returned to her. What was she doing? Was she thinking about me? Or was she already too busy with him? I wanted to hate her. I wanted to be angry at her for leaving, for breaking my heart, for making me feel like I wasn't enough. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. I wasn't sure if I was angry at her anymore. Maybe I was just angry at myself. Angry for not seeing it coming. Angry for being so blind. Angry that I let her go without ever realizing she was slipping away from me. But that's how it goes, doesn't it? You never see it until it's too late. I leaned back in the couch, staring at the ceiling. I didn't know what to do with myself anymore. It was a normal Saturday, or at least I was trying to make it seem normal. I was doing what I had been doing for the past week, nothing. I sat in the same coffee shop I always went to, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, pretending to be interested in anything other than the chaos swirling in my head. But then, I heard a voice. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I looked up, expecting some random stranger. Instead, my breath caught in my throat. There she was. Emily. For a moment, everything around me stopped. She looked different. More put together, like someone who had all the answers. Her hair was styled perfectly, her clothes sharp, elegant, more expensive than I remembered. She didn't look like the girl I had known. She looked like someone who belonged in a completely different world, and that thought punched me in the gut. No, I managed, still in a daze. She smiled, the same smile that used to make my heart race, but now, it just made me feel nauseous. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears as she sat down across from me, that awkward silence hanging between us like a heavy fog. "So, how have you been?" she asked, her voice soft but distant. Too distant. I didn't know what to make of it. Was she trying to act casual? Or did she actually not care? I forced myself to swallow the lump in my throat. "I've been better," I said, my words coming out sharp, colder than I intended. She nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "I figured you would be." I couldn't stop myself. I had to ask. "So, how's he? The billionaire?" Her eyes flickered for a split second, something like discomfort flashed across her face, but it was gone before I could register it. She quickly smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. "He's fine. Busy, as usual. You know how it is." She hesitated before adding, "But things aren't as perfect as they look." That struck me. "What do you mean?" I leaned forward, my curiosity getting the better of me, though I couldn't tell if I wanted to hear it or not. She took a deep breath, her gaze falling to the table. "I don't know. It's just different. Not what I thought it would be." "Different how?" I asked, a little more forcefully than I meant. She looked up at me then, her eyes tired. "I thought I'd be happy. I thought I'd be content. But it's not the same. Not like it was with you." I froze. She had to be kidding, right? She'd left me. She had chosen him. What was she trying to pull now? I let out a sharp laugh, unable to keep it in. "Oh, now you regret it? After everything? After you left me for him?" She didn't flinch. She just sighed and leaned back in her chair. "I don't expect you to understand, but it's not as simple as that. It's never as simple as that." I swallowed the anger rising in me. "So, what? You think we can just pick up where we left off? Like everything's fine?" She stopped herself, her expression softening. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just wanted to talk. I don't know what I want anymore, but I made a huge mistake. And I think about you. A lot. Every day, actually." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I stared at her, unsure what to say. She had left me for a man who could offer her everything I couldn't. She had chosen money, power, status, and now she was telling me this? "What do you expect from me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, and for the first time since I walked in, I saw something real in her eyes. I don't know. Maybe just a chance to talk. To explain. I stared at her, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to yell, to tell her how much she'd hurt me, how much I'd suffered since she left. But instead, I found myself just sitting there, watching her, feeling like a fool. You really think that changes anything? I said, my voice colder now, biting. You left me for him. And now, you're telling me this? Like I'm supposed to just forget? I don't know what I'm expecting, she admitted, her voice small now. But I wanted to see you. I wanted to know if there was even a chance. A chance? I interrupted, feeling my anger surge. A chance for what, Emily? For you to come back and pick up where we left off? After everything you've done? She opened her mouth to speak, but I didn't give her the chance. Don't, I said, shaking my head. I don't need your pity. I don't need your apology. I need something more than that. I stood up abruptly, grabbing my coat. She watched me, her face full of regret, but I didn't care. I couldn't care. I was done. I have nothing left to say to you. I walked out of the coffee shop, the door swinging shut behind me, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. The following days dragged on. I tried to go back to my usual routine, but it wasn't the same. I kept replaying that encounter with Emily over and over in my mind. The way she looked, distant, regretful, yet still so cold. The words she said, the ones that made my heart ache and my anger flare. She wanted to explain? A chance to talk? It didn't make sense to me. But what really confused me was the part of me that was still waiting. Waiting for her to show up again, waiting for some sort of closure. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed. I looked down, not recognizing the number. A message popped up. Can we talk? I need closure, or maybe something more. Emily. I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a mixture of rage and something else. Was I really considering this? Was I really going to let her back into my life, after everything? I didn't respond right away. Instead, I stared at the message, feeling my pulse quicken. The temptation was there. A part of me wanted to scream at her, tell her to stay the hell away from me. Another part wanted to know what she had to say. I didn't know if I was being foolish or if I just needed something, anything, from her. After a long pause, I typed back. I don't know what you think we're going to talk about. I hit send and immediately regretted it. The words felt harsh, even for me. But it was the truth. I didn't want to go back to the way things were, but part of me knew I couldn't just leave things hanging either. Not after everything we'd been through. My phone buzzed again, almost instantly. Please. I need to see you. It's important. Please. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen, feeling the weight of her words. I was angry at her, at myself, at the entire situation. But what if this was the closure I needed? What if it could help me get some peace? After a few more minutes of indecision, I sighed, feeling like an idiot. I didn't want to do this, but I couldn't keep avoiding it. I typed my response. Fine. Tomorrow. Same place. I didn't know what I expected from that meeting, but I knew I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready to see her again, not like this. The next day, I found myself standing outside the same coffee shop where we'd met before, my hands shoved deep into my pockets. I tried to calm my nerves, but my mind kept racing. What did she want? Was she really sorry? Was she still with him? Did she actually regret leaving me? When I saw her walk through the door, looking as flawless as she did the last time, I almost turned and walked away. She looked like she had everything under control, like she was prepared for whatever conversation was about to happen. But I couldn't make myself leave. She spotted me immediately, and for a second, there was something in her eyes, something soft. Almost like she was glad to see me. But just as quickly, it vanished, replaced by that same look of careful detachment. "Hey," she said, her voice quiet. "Hey," I replied, not sure what else to say. She sat down across from me, setting a coffee cup in front of her but not drinking it. I didn't know what to do either, so I stayed silent, staring at the cup in front of me. "So, what is this about?" I finally asked, my tone more clipped than I intended. She sighed, leaning forward slightly, her hands wrapped around her coffee. I don't know where to begin. Maybe I just owe you an explanation. Or maybe I'm just trying to figure things out. I don't know. I've been thinking about it nonstop, and I feel like I need to see you, even if it doesn't change anything. I ran a hand through my hair, frustrated. You think showing up here, after everything, is going to fix anything? You left me, Emily. You chose him over me. I don't know how many times I have to say it, but I can't just forget that. I know, she whispered, her eyes dropping to the table. And I don't expect you to. But I think I made the biggest mistake of my life. I let out a bitter laugh. A mistake? That's what you're going with? Her eyes snapped up to meet mine. Yes. A mistake. I thought I could have it all, and I thought I'd be happy with someone who had money and status. But it's not enough, and I know that now. I miss what we had. I miss you. The words hit me harder than I expected. I didn't want to feel anything. I didn't want to care. But hearing her say it, hearing her admit it, did something to me. A part of me wanted to forgive her. A part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she hadn't meant to hurt me so badly. But I didn't trust myself enough to let that happen. I couldn't let her back in, not after what she had done. You can't just come back into my life because you're unhappy with him, I said, my voice sharp. You can't just erase what happened, Emily. It doesn't work like that. She flinched, her face falling. I know. I don't expect it to be that easy. I just needed to see you. To say that I'm sorry. And that I've been so wrong. I stared at her, torn between the anger and the pain. And what now? What do you expect from me? I don't know, she admitted softly. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. I just needed to say it out loud. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words settle in my chest. There was no easy answer to this. And there probably never would be. I'm not sure I can forgive you, I said finally, my voice low. But I needed to hear that. Even if it doesn't change anything, I needed to hear you say it. She nodded, looking almost relieved. I understand. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to make sure you knew that I was sorry. The silence between us stretched on, but this time, it didn't feel as suffocating. It felt like we were finally on the same page, even if that page was one I didn't want to be on. I stood up slowly, my heart still heavy with everything unsaid. I don't know what the future holds, Emily. But I'm not the same person I was when you left. I can't be. She stood up too, looking at me one last time. I understand. I'm sorry. And with that, I turned and walked out of the coffee shop, the door closing behind me with a soft click. The days after I met Emily again felt like they were dragging on forever. My thoughts were a constant whirlpool of anger, regret, and something else I couldn't quite place. I hadn't expected any magical resolution when I agreed to meet her, but the weight of that conversation kept pressing down on me. I couldn't stop thinking about the way she looked at me when she said she missed me. Or the way her words, so carefully chosen, echoed in my mind long after she'd left. I kept telling myself I shouldn't care. I couldn't care. But somewhere, deep down, I still felt the pull. A few days later, Emily texted me again. "Can we talk? I need to explain myself. Please." I knew I should ignore her. I knew that meeting her again wouldn't change anything, that nothing would bring back what we had. But still, there was a part of me, the part that had loved her so fiercely, that was aching for answers. Fine. Same place, same time. When I arrived at the coffee shop, I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. I didn't know what to expect this time, but I wasn't prepared for what Emily had to say. She was already there when I walked in, sitting at a table by the window, staring out at the street. She didn't look up until I sat down across from her. There was a sadness in her eyes, one that made me want to reach across the table and comfort her, but I forced myself to stay still, to keep my distance. "Thanks for meeting me," she said softly, her voice hesitant. I crossed my arms. "I'm not sure why I'm here, Emily. I don't think anything you say is going to change anything." "I know," she said, looking down at her coffee. "But I need to say it. I owe you that much." I leaned forward. "Say what?" She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I lied to you. About everything. About him, about us." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean, you lied?" She closed her eyes, taking a shaky breath before meeting my gaze. "I told you I left you for him because he could give me everything I wanted. And that's true, but it's not the whole truth. I was selfish. I wanted to be with someone who could offer me everything on the outside. The money, the power, the lifestyle. But I thought that would make me happy. I thought that was all I needed. And when I had it, I realized it didn't mean anything." She paused, her fingers playing with the edge of her coffee cup. "I thought I'd be happy, but I wasn't. I wasn't happy with him. I was still thinking about you, about everything we had. And I hated myself for it. I thought if I had everything I wanted, I'd finally be content, but I wasn't. I couldn't stop missing you." I felt a wave of frustration flood through me. "So, you left me for him because you thought the grass was greener, but it wasn't? And now you want to fix it?" Emily bit her lip, her eyes filling with regret. "I don't know if I can fix it, but I know I was wrong. I was so focused on what I didn't have, that I completely ignored what I already had with you. I took you for granted, and I'm sorry for that." I couldn't hold back the bitter laugh that escaped my mouth. "Sorry? You're sorry?" "Yes," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I am. I shouldn't have done what I did. I hurt you, and I can't take that back. But I wanted you to know the truth. The real reason I left. The anger I had been holding on to for so long was bubbling to the surface, but there was something else there too. Pain. I didn't want to feel it, didn't want to admit that her words had affected me in ways I couldn't control. "So, what now?" I asked, my voice thick. "You expect me to just forget everything and take you back? Like nothing happened?" She shook her head quickly. "No. I don't expect that. I don't deserve that. I just needed to tell you. I need you to know that I wasn't happy with him. That it wasn't about him, it was about me. I was searching for something outside myself, something that I thought would fix me, but it didn't. I leaned back in my chair, trying to make sense of everything she was saying. My mind was racing. I didn't know what to think. Did she really expect me to believe that? Or was this just another way to make herself feel better? I don't even know who you are anymore, I said quietly. The woman I loved wouldn't have done what you did. She wouldn't have walked away so easily. And now you're telling me all this, like it makes sense. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. I know. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed to be honest with you. I can't move on with my life until I've told you everything. Until I've apologized for what I did. I stared at her, feeling the weight of her words sink in. There was something raw and vulnerable in her admission, but it wasn't enough. I had already lost so much. Could I ever trust her again? Could I even allow myself to? I don't know if I can believe you, I said quietly. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I understand. I don't expect you to. But I needed to say it. I needed you to know that I am truly sorry. The silence between us stretched on, heavy and thick. I didn't know what to do with myself. What could I do with her confession? It didn't change the fact that she had hurt me, that she had chosen someone else over me. But still, there was a part of me that felt a sliver of something, maybe relief, maybe a sense of closure. I didn't know if it was enough, but for the first time since she left, I didn't feel completely numb. Okay, I said, standing up slowly. I guess I needed to hear that. I turned to leave, but before I reached the door, I heard her voice again. Thank you, she whispered, her words barely audible. I didn't turn back. I just walked out of the coffee shop, the door clicking softly behind me. The days after my conversation with Emily felt like I was in some kind of limbo. Part of me wanted to let go of the anger, to push past the betrayal, but another part of me couldn't shake it. Her apology, as sincere as it seemed, didn't change what she had done. And no matter how much I told myself I was done, that I was better off, a part of me still wondered if there was something salvageable between us. I woke up each morning feeling like I was carrying a weight that I couldn't put down. I tried to focus on work, on friends, on anything that would keep me from spiraling, but it felt like every moment was consumed with thoughts of her. It didn't matter how hard I tried to forget, she was always there. That night, I found myself sitting on the couch, scrolling through old pictures of us on my phone. I shouldn't have done it. I knew it would hurt. But I couldn't stop myself. I saw us at that park, laughing, carefree. I saw the night we went to that little diner, the first time we talked about our future. I remembered how it felt to hold her, to be wrapped in her arms, thinking that nothing could break us apart. But everything had changed. I put the phone down and ran my hands over my face, trying to push the memories away. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep wishing for a life that wasn't mine anymore. And yet, I found myself wishing that maybe, just maybe, things could go back to how they were. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. I glanced at the clock. It was late, too late for any usual visitors. I stood up slowly, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. Who the hell could it be at this hour? I opened the door, expecting maybe a delivery or a neighbor, but instead, I found myself face to face with Emily. My heart skipped a beat, but I quickly shut down any emotion that threatened to rise up. I crossed my arms. What are you doing here? She looked down at the ground for a moment, her voice soft when she spoke. Can I come in? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face. The other part, well, that part was still too curious, still too hurt to send her away. Why? I asked, keeping my tone flat. She looked up at me then, and I saw the vulnerability in her eyes. She was fighting something, fighting whatever had brought her here. I need to talk. Please. I stepped aside, not knowing what to expect but too exhausted to fight it. She walked in slowly, as if she wasn't sure of her place anymore. I didn't offer her a seat. I didn't offer her anything. I just stood there, watching her like a stranger. She took a deep breath before speaking again. I don't know what I expect from this. From you. I know I've hurt you. I know you hate me for what I did. But I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop thinking about how I threw away something real for something fake. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. You mean you're not happy with your billionaire? Not living the dream you thought you would? Emily flinched at the sharpness of my words, but she didn't back down. No, it's not like that. You don't understand. She paused, her voice trembling. I thought I wanted all those things. The wealth. The luxury. The security. But none of it mattered. Not without you. And I hate myself for it. I hate myself for throwing you away so easily. I shook my head. You didn't just throw me away. You broke me, Emily. And I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. I know, she whispered, her face crumpling as if she couldn't hold the tears back anymore. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know that I'm not happy. I'm not better off. And I don't want him. I want you. But I don't know if you'll ever believe that. Her words hit me like a wave, drowning me in emotions I didn't want to feel. I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to hold on to that bitterness that had been my armor for so long. But her confession, the rawness of her regret, cracked through that wall. I took a step back, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. You can't just come back after everything. After all the pain. You can't just waltz in here and expect me to open up to you again. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face now. I don't expect that. I know it's too late. I know I can't fix what I broke. But I needed to tell you that I'm sorry. I needed to say it in person. The anger inside me flared again, but it wasn't the same. This time, it wasn't all directed at her. A part of me was angry at myself. Angry for still caring, angry for still being affected by her. Angry for not being able to just let go. You don't get it, Emily, I said, my voice quieter now, but the pain was clear. You don't just walk back into my life and pretend nothing happened. You don't get to just fix it. She nodded, looking defeated. I know. And I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking for one thing. I looked at her, confused. What? She stepped closer to me, her voice barely above a whisper. Please don't hate me. Please don't keep me in that place in your heart. I don't want to be the one who hurt you. Not anymore. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream at her, to push her away, but something inside me held me back. Part of me was still hanging on to that version of her, the one I loved. And the other part, the stronger part, wanted to let her go forever. I turned away, unable to look at her. I don't know if I can ever stop hating you, Emily. But I'm not sure I can hate you forever. Her sobs broke through the silence, but I couldn't comfort her. I couldn't let myself get caught up in the same trap. She had left me. She had broken me. And now I had to rebuild everything she had torn apart. "I'll leave," she said quietly, her voice shaky. "I just wanted to say it. To let you know I'm sorry." I nodded without looking at her, the weight of everything too heavy to carry in that moment. "Goodbye, Emily." She left quietly, the sound of the door clicking shut behind her louder than anything. And as I stood there, feeling like I'd just taken another step toward healing, I realized that no matter what I felt for her, no matter how much I wanted her back, I had to keep moving forward. There was nothing left for me in the past anymore. The days after Emily left were a blur. I'd gone through the motions, pretending like I was okay, but the truth was, I wasn't. I hadn't been for a long time. And now, after everything, the bitterness that had been simmering beneath the surface bubbled up once again. The apology she'd given me didn't bring relief. It didn't heal anything. In fact, it only made the wounds feel deeper, more raw. She'd come back into my life, told me everything I'd wanted to hear, and yet, it didn't change a damn thing. She was still with him, the billionaire who had everything I didn't. And I couldn't help but wonder if she was still with him for the same reasons: money, status, power. I had spent weeks trying to get past the anger, but now it was different. I wasn't angry at her anymore. No, I was angry at myself. Angry for allowing her to hurt me. Angry for still caring. But above all, I was angry at the way life had turned out, how it had seemed so unfair, how I had been nothing but a stepping stone for her to reach the life she thought she wanted. I had tried to move on. I really had. But after everything that had happened, the question burned in my mind: how could she just get away with it? How could she walk away without any consequences, while I was left to pick up the pieces of my broken heart? The answer came to me slowly, like a creeping shadow. I wanted revenge. Not in the way people usually think about revenge. I didn't want to hurt her physically or humiliate her. But I wanted something deeper, something that would make her feel what I felt when she left. I wanted to see him, as the billionaire, lose everything. I wanted to see him fall from grace. I wanted him to know what it felt like to have the world beneath you, only for it to crumble in an instant. I wasn't proud of this feeling. But at the same time, it was the only thing that made me feel something other than numbness. I began to research, digging into the billionaire's life, his company, his past. I spent hours online, reading everything I could about his empire, looking for any crack, any flaw I could exploit. The more I found, the more I realized how fragile it all was. People like him built their lives on a house of cards: one mistake, one misstep, and it could all come crashing down. I had no delusions that my actions would bring Emily back to me. But I didn't care about that anymore. She'd made her choice. Now, I was going to make sure that choice had consequences. I started small, at first, minor things that wouldn't be easily traced back to me. A little sabotage here and there, whispers in the right ears, false rumors that made his company look bad. The more I did, the easier it became. The rush of seeing him slip, even in the smallest ways, was intoxicating. It felt good, but not good enough. I wanted more. And then, I found it. One of the biggest investors in his company had ties to some shady dealings. I found the connection, the money laundering, the little secret that no one had dared to expose. All it would take was a single anonymous tip to the right people, and the whole thing could come crashing down. I sat on the tip for a day, debating whether or not to pull the trigger. Part of me wanted to back out. I didn't want to ruin someone's life just for the sake of it. But then I thought of Emily, how she'd walked away from me with no consequences. How she had chosen him over me. It felt like this was the only way to balance the scales. I typed the email that would send everything into motion. My hand trembled as I hit send, but once I did, I felt a cold satisfaction wash over me. It was done. I didn't hear anything for a few days, but I didn't need to. I knew the wheels were in motion. The next thing I knew, I saw headlines about his company being under investigation for financial misconduct. Within days, his empire began to crumble. The media had a field day with the scandal, and one by one, investors started pulling out. People who had once idolized him turned on him, as if the very foundation of his success had been built on lies. I watched it all unfold from the sidelines, my heart racing with a mix of triumph and guilt. He wasn't the only one who'd suffered. I had, too. But in that moment, the weight I'd been carrying for so long seemed just a little bit lighter. The man who had everything was losing it all. The tables had turned. But as much as I watched, I couldn't help but feel an emptiness inside. This wasn't satisfying. It wasn't a victory. Watching him lose everything didn't make me feel any better. I was no closer to healing than I had been before. The anger was still there, buried beneath the surface, but it wasn't the same. It was a hollow victory, one that left me with nothing but more questions. Emily didn't contact me. And honestly, I didn't expect her to. The one thing that still lingered in my mind, however, was how she had reacted when I last saw her. She had been sorry. But was it genuine? Or was she just trying to get rid of the guilt eating at her? In the end, I realized something painful. The revenge I thought would bring me closure only brought more emptiness. Watching someone else's downfall couldn't heal the pain inside me. All I had done was shift the focus from my own wounds to his. I was left standing in the same place, with the same broken heart. But at least, for a brief moment, it had felt like I was in control. The problem was that control wasn't real. It never was. And now, I was left with nothing but the wreckage of the choices I'd made. I didn't know how to fix it. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't know if I ever could. The weeks that followed Emily's last visit felt like a strange fog. Her words still echoed in my mind, her confession, her apology. But nothing felt any clearer. If anything, everything seemed even more complicated. I couldn't shake the anger that still lingered inside me. I couldn't stop thinking about the life we'd planned together, the dreams we'd shared, and how easily they had all been shattered by her decision. I was exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally. But none of it seemed to matter. It was like I was walking through life with a mask on, pretending everything was fine when deep down, I was falling apart. But then, one afternoon, as I sat alone in the living room, trying to distract myself from my racing thoughts, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up. I didn't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't prepared for what I heard on the other end. "Is this, my name?" a deep voice asked. I frowned. "Yeah, who's this?" The voice hesitated, then spoke again. "This is Derek. I'm with the law firm representing Billionaire's name. You may want to sit down for this." My blood ran cold. My mind went blank for a moment. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "There's been an investigation into his business dealings. The company's been accused of illegal activity. And, well, it's all connected to the information that was leaked about him. It's led to a series of damaging consequences. The authorities are involved now." I felt a sick satisfaction coil in my stomach, but it was quickly replaced by confusion. "What does this have to do with me?" "Well," Derek said carefully, We have reason to believe that someone close to you may have been involved in leaking confidential information about the company. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I was silent for a moment, trying to piece everything together. My mind was racing. You think I leaked it? We have a few leads pointing in your direction, he said, his tone cautious. But nothing concrete yet. We're just trying to figure out how this got out, and who had access to the information. I felt my heart pounding. I hadn't expected this. The weight of everything I had done, everything I'd set in motion, was crashing down on me. The revenge I'd thought would bring me satisfaction now felt like a terrible mistake. My hand trembled as I gripped the phone tighter. Are you accusing me of something? I barely managed to get the words out. No, not yet. But we'll need you to come in for questioning. It's just procedure. You'll have the opportunity to explain yourself. But I suggest you prepare for what comes next. I felt a lump form in my throat. I didn't do anything, I said, my voice shaking. I didn't leak anything. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, Derek spoke again. We'll see. Expect a call soon. And if you'd like to speak with a lawyer before you come in, that might be a good idea. I hung up the phone, the weight of everything settling on my chest. The phone call seemed to pull me back into reality, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like the ground beneath me was slipping away. I hadn't meant for any of this to happen. I hadn't meant to get tangled up in this web of lies, revenge, and deceit. I was so focused on watching him fall, on getting back at Emily and him for what they had done, that I hadn't stopped to think about the consequences. But now, it was too late. The consequences were staring me right in the face. I had no idea how this would play out. I had no idea how deep I was in. All I knew was that I had crossed a line I couldn't come back from. The revenge I'd thought would bring me peace had only brought me closer to ruin. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. I kept thinking about Emily, about the way she had looked when she told me she was sorry, when she admitted she had made a mistake. I had once thought I would never be able to forgive her for what she did to me, but now, as I lay there, I wondered if I was beyond forgiveness myself. The phone call had forced me to confront something I had been running from for weeks, the reality of my own actions. My need for revenge had blinded me, had made me feel justified in doing whatever it took to see him fail. But now, I wasn't so sure. Was this who I had become? Someone so consumed by anger and hurt that I was willing to destroy myself in the process? I thought back to the man I was before Emily left, before all of this. Had I been someone better? Someone who had integrity? Or was I always capable of this kind of destruction, just waiting for the right push? The answer was too painful to face. The next day, I went to the law firm, unsure of what would happen next. My mind was spinning with thoughts of Emily, of everything that had gone wrong. I felt like I was walking into a trap, like everything I had done was finally catching up with me. I sat in the sterile office, waiting for my turn. My hands were sweaty, my stomach twisted with dread. I couldn't stop the feeling of dread from creeping in. What if this was it? What if all my choices had led me here, to the moment where I lost everything? When they called me in, I walked into the room with a sense of finality. This was it. I wasn't going to run from it anymore. But as the door closed behind me, and I sat across from the lawyer, the weight of the situation hit me harder than I ever expected. You don't have to answer everything, but we do need the truth, the lawyer said, looking at me with a mixture of caution and professionalism. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. Because the truth was, I had no one left to blame but myself. The room felt suffocating. Every breath seemed to drag on longer than the last, and my mind kept replaying the phone call, the investigation, the look in Emily's eyes when she last saw me. The weight of everything I had done, settled heavy on my shoulders. It was like I was being crushed under the gravity of my own decisions. The lawyer sitting across from me didn't offer me any comfort. He sat there, calm and composed, as if he had seen this kind of thing 100 times. It only made me feel more out of place, more out of control. "You don't have to speak if you don't want to," the lawyer said, his voice smooth, almost mechanical. "But we need to know your side of the story. This could determine a lot of things." I stared at my hands, fighting the urge to tremble. My world had unraveled in ways I couldn't even process. Everything I had done, every decision, every small act of sabotage, every whisper in the right ear, it had all led to this point. And for what? I had thought I was just trying to make her feel the pain I'd felt. I had thought revenge would give me closure, that it would somehow heal the wounds she'd left in me. But now, it felt like I was just digging myself into a hole I couldn't climb out of. The weight of my actions was crushing me. "Why did you do it?" the lawyer pressed, his tone softer now. "What were you hoping to achieve?" I swallowed hard. There was no easy way to answer that. I could have lied. I could have played dumb, pretended like I wasn't involved. But something in me knew I couldn't keep running from the truth. "I thought it would make me feel better," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I thought if I made him pay, if I made her see what she had lost, it would give me some kind of justice. Some kind of closure." The lawyer didn't respond immediately. He just nodded, like he understood. But I wasn't sure if he did. No one ever really understood what it was like to be in my shoes. They didn't understand what it felt like to be left behind, to be discarded so easily. "I thought you were better than this," Emily's voice echoed in my mind, her words from that last meeting replaying over and over. I didn't know if I was better than this. I didn't know if I had ever been better than this. "Your actions have consequences," the lawyer said, breaking my spiraling thoughts. "The situation you're in now, it's not something that just goes away. You need to understand that." I nodded, barely able to keep my eyes open. It was hard to keep looking at the man who was there to help me. He was just another reminder of how deep I was in it. "Do you want to fight this?" he asked, as though this was some decision I could control. "Or do you want to come clean and work with us?" I closed my eyes for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. What did I want? What did I really want? The truth was, I wasn't sure I had the strength to keep fighting. I wasn't sure I had the strength to keep running from the consequences of my actions. I had hurt people. I had hurt her. I had hurt myself. And all for what? To make a point? To try and heal the wounds that I wasn't even sure could ever be healed? In the silence that followed, I realized something. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep pretending that I was in control, that I could fix everything by manipulating the situation. The truth was, I didn't want to be that person anymore. I didn't want to be the person who plotted revenge, who tried to make people pay for their mistakes. I didn't want to keep holding on to that anger, that resentment. It wasn't worth it. It was never going to be worth it. "I'll come clean," I said, the words falling from my lips without thinking. "I can't keep doing this. I've messed up too much already." The lawyer looked at me for a long moment, studying me like he was trying to figure out if I was serious. "This is the right choice," he said slowly, nodding. "But understand that it's not going to be easy. You'll have to face the consequences of what you've done. I looked at him, meeting his gaze for the first time since I'd walked in. I know. And I'm ready for that. I wasn't sure what that meant exactly. I didn't know if it was the right thing to do, or if it would even make a difference. But in that moment, I felt a small sense of relief. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't trying to outrun the past. I wasn't trying to run from the mistakes I had made. The truth was, I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know if I could ever fix the broken pieces of my life. I didn't know if I could ever forgive myself for what I had done to her, to him, or to myself. But I knew one thing for sure, I had to start somewhere. And that somewhere had to be facing the consequences, owning up to the mistakes I had made. The lawyer stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. "I'll make the arrangements," he said. "You'll need to cooperate fully." I nodded, standing up as well, feeling the weight of everything that had happened settling back onto my shoulders. It wasn't over. It would never be over. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. I stepped out of the office, the door clicking softly behind me. I had no idea what the future held. But I knew that this was the beginning of something. Maybe it was a fresh start. Maybe it was the end of the line. But whatever it was, I had made my choice. And now, I had to live with it. The days that followed were a blur of legal meetings, paperwork, and long nights spent staring at the ceiling, wrestling with everything I had done. I thought the weight of my past actions would crush me, but somehow, I found myself taking one small step after another. The more I faced the consequences of what I'd done, the clearer it became that there was no turning back. I couldn't undo the damage I'd caused, and I didn't expect forgiveness from anyone. But I had to keep moving forward. I had learned the hard way that revenge was a hollow pursuit. The satisfaction I thought I would feel when I watched him lose everything never came. Instead, I found myself in a place I hadn't expected, feeling more lost than I ever had before. But even in the chaos, I began to realize something: I could rebuild my life. I could create something new from the wreckage. The legal consequences of my actions weren't easy to face, but at least they were straightforward. The investigation into the billionaire's company had led to a series of serious consequences for him, but the police had decided not to press charges against me. The damage was done, yes, but I wasn't going to be held accountable for something I hadn't directly done. There was still a small part of me that felt relief that I wasn't going to prison, that I wouldn't be branded a criminal. But there was also something else, the gnawing feeling that I still hadn't truly faced the full impact of my choices. I kept my distance from everyone, even my old friends. They were all too caught up in their own lives to ask about me, and I didn't want to burden them with the mess I had created. I spent most of my days at the small apartment I had rented after everything had fallen apart, trying to put together the broken pieces of my life. It wasn't easy. There were moments when the anger flared again, when I thought of Emily, of the way she had left me, of the way she had broken me. But I had to remind myself that I was no longer the same person I had been when she walked out of my life. The man I was now was different. I had learned, even in the darkest parts of this journey, that I couldn't keep holding on to that anger. It wasn't doing me any good. If anything, it was just holding me back. One evening, I sat in my living room, scrolling through job listings. I didn't want to go back to my old life, to the life I had before all of this happened. That part of me was dead. But I needed something to focus on, something to rebuild. It was then that I saw it, an opening for a position at a non-profit organization that worked with people who had gone through difficult, life-changing events. The description caught my attention. It wasn't about power or prestige. It was about helping people rebuild their lives. Maybe, just maybe, this was my chance to do something good for once, to finally find a purpose in all the wreckage. I didn't hesitate. I clicked on the application link and began typing out my resume. It felt strange, like I was applying for a job in a world I didn't belong to, but there was something about it that felt right. Something that made me think this could be the first step toward healing. The next few weeks passed by quickly. I focused on getting my life back on track, taking small steps to reclaim what I had lost. I went to therapy, something I had never considered before, but the more I talked about everything I'd been through, the clearer it became that I needed to let go of the past in order to move forward. It wasn't easy. Some days, I felt like I was dragging myself through the motions, but little by little, I felt stronger. One afternoon, I got the call. I'd been selected for an interview. It was a small victory, but to me, it meant everything. The interview wasn't easy. I had to explain the gaps in my resume, the time I'd spent away from work, the choices I had made. But when I sat across from the interviewers, when I told them my story, my real story, something shifted inside me. I wasn't trying to be anyone else anymore. I wasn't hiding behind excuses or pretending to be someone I wasn't. I was finally ready to own who I was, all of it. A week later, I got the job. The feeling that washed over me when I read the email wasn't what I expected. It wasn't pure joy, but something deeper, something more profound. It was relief that I had finally started to rebuild, relief that I had taken the first step toward something new. It didn't erase the mistakes I'd made or the pain I'd caused, but it felt like the beginning of something real. Something better. The months that followed were a slow process of rebuilding. I made new friends, people who didn't know the broken version of me. I put my energy into helping others who had gone through the same kind of pain I had. And every day, I worked to let go of the anger and regret that had held me captive for so long. I never saw Emily again after that day in the coffee shop. She reached out once or twice, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. There was nothing left to say. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. She had her life, and I had mine. And that was enough. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally moving toward it. The scars of the past would always be there, but they didn't define me anymore. I was done being a victim. I was done letting the past control me. I had lost everything once, but now, I was building something new. A new life. A new beginning. And this time, I was doing it for me.